We are continuing on my reviews of the Netflix adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender, and today we continue with episode 4 titled Into the Dark. We are going to break it down and talk about it in today's new video. My fellow benders of all four nations, welcome to Uncle Iroh's tea shop, the Jasmine Dragon. Find yourself a seat, grab some jasmine tea, and enjoy the video. Like with my recent videos, let's see if we can hit a goal of 200 likes on this one. Like I mentioned last video, be sure to keep the comments and dialogue to this episode and this episode only. Regarding my thoughts on the episode itself, I have a lot of thoughts on this one for not so good reasons, and then some stuff that I also did like myself. In this episode, we explore the character of King Bumi after Aang gets captured in the last episode. We also see some more scenes with regards to the Mechanist, the end of the arc with Jet, a very interesting adaptation of the Cave of Two Lovers, and then some other stuff around Zuko and Iroh. I hope you all don't mind, but I'm just going to jump right into the thing that I loved the most about this episode before we get into anything else. That would be the stuff around Zuko and Iroh. I absolutely adored and loved everything that these guys did in this episode, whether it was the journey of Iroh with the Earth Kingdom soldiers, or the new addition of a sequence that showcases the funeral of Iroh's son, Lu Ten. Right off the gate, I have to say I got emotional watching this scene. It was a perfectly executed moment all around from the acting and the directing. Paul Hyung-sung Lee nailed the scene as Iroh, and Dallas Liu added to it even more with his dialogue. A really touching scene that I'm glad that they added in. Even the stuff with regards to Iroh being taken away by the Earth Kingdom soldiers was pretty neat, to even that final scene of a flashback as he and Zuko are about to venture off to find the Avatar. The fight scenes as well between them and the Earth Kingdom soldiers was pretty well done, I would say. All those scenes with those characters were very good, and I would say my favorite part of the whole episode. If Netflix ever makes a season 2 for the show and we get the Tales of Ba Sing Se moment where Iroh mourns over his son, I think Paul would definitely kill that scene as well after what he showed me here in this episode. To move on into some other stuff, I will now touch up upon the last couple of sequences that we get with the characters of the Mechanist and Jet. The Mechanist basically ends his arc in this show by helping Sokka and Katara get into the palace to help get Aang out, and this is done by sending them through a network of tunnels, and a very particular set of tunnels, might I add, which we will talk about soon. He also ends up giving up the Fire Nation spies in the city that he was working with to the king, and so he ends off in a good way, in my opinion, for the character he is. I thought he was really well played by the actor, and so if he comes back in season 3 in the future, if it ever gets made, I'll look forward to his arrival. With regards to Jet, this ends pretty quickly, and not much time is spent on it, but this is how they end off his arc with regards to how it relates to the cartoon, where Katara sticks it up to him and loses all trust and faith in what he believes in. She freezes him up against the pole and they go their separate ways. Again, my feelings here are the same with how I feel about the Mechanist. I love the actor playing Jet, and I think he is pretty awesome in this version, and so I would love to see him come back if season 2 ever gets made. This is now where we transition into the nitty-gritty of the episode, of which I have quite a lot of thoughts about, and some of it is not very good, so stick with me on this, and this is the moment I know you've all been waiting for with regards to me talking about. So firstly, as I just mentioned, Sokka and Katara had to traverse around a network of secret tunnels in order to get into the palace. This is, of course, where we come to find out that the live-action show is adapting the Cave of Two Lovers episode in with this exploration of Omashu's upbringing and how it came to be. Now, honestly, when I think on it, the idea of mashing together these two things in concept actually does make sense. Although, I think the execution of it was pretty poor, whether it was from the dialogue, of which is very expositional, or even the actual showcase of the nomads that they come across in the cartoon. They are doing their thing where they are singing the song that the cartoon is well known for. When I watched the scene, no joke, I noticed every single filmmaking issue with it. For one, I could just hear the ADR through it, and it never lined up properly with the guy who was singing it and his mouth. Then, when we get into the actual lore dump and exposition of how this ties in with the notion of the secret lovers and the upbringing of Omashu, this is where I did get that very expositional stuff that I've seen people complain about with regards to the show. It is just a whole lot of backstory that is just set out for the audience to hear. For reference, in the cartoon, our gang is on the way back to Omashu, but here in the live action, they just straight up do it in the city underneath it. Now, on the other hand, in terms of the actual lore of how Omashu is founded, it actually gets it right here to some degree with regards to the fact fact that it was brought up by two people who fell in love even though the relationship was forbidden and dangerous, and so they were able to see each other in secrecy. The romance ended up ending in a tragedy where one of them, named Shu, was killed in a war between two villages of which they were a part of. The other lover, named Oma, made sure to stop the war between the villages, and after this happened, the villages came together and built a city in honor of their love, calling it Omashu. So again, to some degree, they pretty much did get down the correct idea in terms of the lore of the city and how it was built, but again, the way that it is communicated through this massive exposition dump, I think probably could have turned some people off if I had to assume. Although I will say I did like the usage of CGI to showcase how it was made on top of this rock here, so I'll definitely give this another point for that. The other change up that they made here is that this time they don't do it between a potential love of Katara and Aang, but they do it out of the love that Katara and Sokka have for being brother and sister, given that they are family. When the Badger Moles show up, this is how they are able to get through the walls, and while I think that the Badger Moles look good from a CGI perspective, I do kind of wish that the show did more to showcase the fact that they are earthbenders after all. That is how that they are able to traverse around these tunnels. It's not just because that they are able to destroy rocks in their way, and so I kind of wish that they did explore that a little more, but given they are an expensive part of the episode with regards to CGI, I guess I kind of understand why. Obviously, everybody here knows that this is a book 2 thing and not a book 1 thing, and so this is not the only time that the show adapts something from book 2 into the first season. But, you know, how did you all feel about the fact that they adapted something from book 2 into season 1? When we got the first trailer for the show all those months ago, I had predicted that they would actually have brought that storyline into the show, and my predictions seemed to be correct. I was really hoping that maybe they would only adapt book 1 stuff, but knowing how the show goes, this wasn't the case, of course. And so now with all that out of the way, we get to the other big portion of the episode, which is of course following the character of King Bumi. Now, let me just say the stuff that I like about what they did with him here first. I actually kind of like the actor with how he portrayed him. At times there is that one-to-one that I could feel with regards to his voice and his mannerisms. I also liked the costumes and the designs of the production here as well, and I also particularly liked some of their fight that they had with each other as well. The problem, though, that I have with how this character is portrayed in the show is that it is a complete 180 of how he feels about Aang as a person. Instead of him like he is in the cartoon with regards to the fact that in the cartoon he knows who Aang is, this time they do the 180 of that and make it as if they've never had that great connection with each other, even though they show you that they might have had one when they were kids in the flashback scenes. Here he is a 112-year-old man, and they make him a little bit too cranky and a little too much of a dick. Like, let's be real here. In the cartoon, Bumi acts more like a playful dick, where he knows he's just trying to have fun with Aang, but he doesn't mean it in a negative way. All he's trying to do is just prove something to Aang. Here in the live action, he's just a dick, and I feel like they don't get that sense of how they might have had a connection before. He talks about the fact that Aang had abandoned everything that he left the world behind to, with regards to the fact that the war just consumed everything. Because at least in the cartoon, you again had that playful side of Bumi, where he had to force Aang to go through all these challenges to help get Katara and Sokka out of the rock candy. Like I said though, I feel like the cartoon makes it more playful, but here in the live action, it tends to take itself a little bit more seriously, as if Aang really did portray their friendship with each other that they had all those years ago. So yeah, for me, I wasn't a big fan of how they made that little 180 with his character, although I didn't mind how it ended after the fight was over, where Aang makes that connection back with him by giving him his whistle that Bumi made for him as a kid. They end off the episode by giving them a farewell, as Bumi talks about the fact that the Fire Nation is on their way to the city, and this lines up well with what the cartoon is about, given that it makes sense because of the fact that we know that Omashu gets taken over by the Fire Nation eventually. Overall, I thought this episode was just okay, and another step down from the last episode in my personal opinion. I thought that it did have some good moments, but the stuff with the Cave of Two Lovers and Bumi weighed it down just a little bit. Again, I really loved all the stuff with Zuko and Iroh, and that fundamentally is why it leads into some of the more stronger parts of the season with those characters as we get in the later episodes. So those are my final thoughts on episode 4 of the Netflix adaptation, and now we get to the most important part of the video, which is where I want you all to comment down below your thoughts on the episode and what you thought of my commentary of it. If you did enjoy this video, or if you enjoyed the episode, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and turn on that notification bell for when I upload again in the future. On your way out of Uncle Iroh's tea shop, be sure to let him know how much you appreciate his jasmine tea and his words of wisdom that come with it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you soon for more Avatar.